Greetings and welcome to SCAR Speaks. My name is Margarita and I'm a PhD student at SCAR, and I'm here with Robbie Wellington, who is also a PhD student at the institution. And Robbie is here today with us to talk about his work as a hospice chaplain in Washington, D.C. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Margarita.
Can you please tell what do you do? What hospice chaplains do you usually do?
Hospice is it's national and a worldwide organization that works with people at end of life. So my role as the chaplain is to provide emotional and spiritual care to people in their homes. So my organization, the Washington Home and Community Hospices, is in Washington, D.C. We also have a Maryland office, but I focus on D.C. So I drive around the city and visit people in their homes. And usually at end of life, people are often scared. They are doing a kind of life review. Do they have any regrets? Do they have any unfinished business? Is there any conflict within the family or with friends that needs to be resolved? Do they have inner conflict? Do they have conflict with God? Or some kind of a spiritual level. So that's my role on the hospice team, is to focus on the emotional and spiritual concerns that either the hospice patient or the family has. And then the nurse focuses on the physical pain. And then we have a social worker who can provide any kind of financial services or bring in aid into the home to help the patient with bathing and things like that. So hospice takes a holistic approach to providing health care to people.
Thank you. And how does your work relate to your studies, and why you chose conflict resolution and peace studies major for yourself?
Yeah, I've always been interested in peace and conflict resolution, and I've always been interested in international work, and I've also been interested in religion and the role that religion plays in conflict resolution. Religion as a source of conflict and a religion as a source of peace. And so I went to Wesley Theological Seminary and American University in D.C. They have a dual degree program, and I studied International Peace and Conflict Resolution at AU, and I studied theology at Wesley. And now I'm an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church USA. So a lot of the skills that I use in hospice, in the ministry, overlap with skills that you use in conflict resolution. For example, active listening, being fully present, helping people to communicate and express difficult things, because often in conflict situations it's hard to even get people to the table and to talk about things, and sometimes you have to do that kind of work in hospice. We recently read Volkan's Bloodlines, where he has a whole chapter devoted to mourning and grief, and how unresolved grief, these unresolved issues can manifest themselves later on in unhealthy ways. They can just make conflict even worse. And so that same concept of healing, healthy grief, healthy mourning, ritual, what role does religion play in that process is used both in hospice and in conflict resolution. So my PhD work here, I'm very interested in looking at religion, looking at ways that religion can be used to promote peace. I'm interested in dialogue as a tool, so either bringing together people of different ethnicities, nationalities, backgrounds, or even doing an interfaith dialogue, for example, in Israel-Palestine. And I've worked closely with Professor Mohammed Abu-Nimer at American University, who's done extensive work in dialogue, interfaith work in that region. So that's definitely something I'm looking at. in bringing the two fields of my religious background and conflict resolution together.
It seems that you already have some conflict resolution background, and what do you think this advanced degree would add to your knowledge, to your experience, and how you can expand your work using that?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I remember from college, people often encouraged me to pursue doctorate work because I've always had a passion for teaching, learning, research, asking difficult questions and exploring those. So I've always been encouraged to pursue that, but I never seriously considered teaching. I was definitely interested in conflict resolution work or the ministry, but not necessarily teaching. And then when I graduated from college, I went to China, and I lived there for 5 years teaching English. And that's when I fell in love with teaching. That's when I realized, wow, I really like this teaching thing. So if you want to teach in the United States, you need to have a PhD, or even abroad. And so I wanted to do a PhD to do further research and study on conflict resolution and dialogue and the role of religion, and sharpen my skills, connect with practitioners in the field. We have such a great group of students, faculty, and staff here at SCAR, and I think it's a great resource to find out what's being done, what are areas that need further exploration, and so all of those things brought me here. And so when I finish the PhD, I'm interested in teaching either in the States or abroad. I'm also interested in actively doing peacemaking work, whether that's through dialogue or some other means. And I think the ministry, pastoring, also needs to be a part of that somehow. Whether I'm teaching in a seminary, I'm doing interfaith dialogue work, pastoring a church abroad, while at the same time trying to build bridges with other faith groups or other congregations. I'm not really sure what form it will take, all these different interests I have, but I think I'm being prepared for something, and so I just keep trying to do the best that I can, to learn as much as I can, to prepare for however that'll take shape in the future.
Thank you. You said that you have obviously the background in religious and studies, and also you are a practicing chaplain. What would be your assessment, like if you're looking at the conflict resolution field and the interfaith dialogue in particular, up to now, or your observation, how much religion is utilized towards promoting peace rather than promoting violence?
Yeah, I think in many cultures, religion is kind of a taboo topic. People don't want to talk about it, they're uncomfortable about it. Religion deals with existential, metaphysical questions like the meaning and purpose and who am I and what happens after I die, which I deal with a lot in hospice. And so I think there's a resistance and a hesitancy to even talk about it. But I think religion and spirituality is a great resource that hasn't really been tapped to use. And I think religion is often used as an excuse when people are talking about areas of conflict and violence. And they say, religion was the cause of the troubles in Northern Ireland. Religion is the cause of what's going on in Israel-Palestine. But if you really look at those conflicts in depth, it's not necessarily the case. There's a professor at American University, Professor Said, who once said that people often use religion as a pawn to get what they want. And so I'm interested in using religion as a resource and a tool, and not a scapegoat or an excuse. I think it's fascinating how people often commit acts of violence in the name of religion or because God told me so. And I think with self-reflection, dialogue, self-practice, group work, a lot of different ways to explore what are all the layers underneath those beliefs. and what's going on in the person, what influenced the person to think that way or do that. So I know religion has been a source of peace in my life, and I'm just curious about the role of religion in other people's lives and exploring that and using that. So I think it has a lot more potential than how it's being used currently.
You referenced several times your studies at American University. I was wondering how you chose SCAR as your institution where you want to pursue your PhD, and how that decision came to you.
Yeah, American University, their program in International Peace and Conflict Resolution is very similar to SCAR's focus on conflict analysis and resolution. So there's a lot of partnerships and cooperation between the two programs, SCAR here and the School of International Service, SIS, at American University. For example, there are workshops on facilitation, skill development, and training, beginner and advanced. So there's a lot going on between the two programs. And I think what brought me to SCAR was I knew I was interested in conflict resolution, and it's a very rare and unique field or program when you're talking about PhD work. At the PhD level, it's usually a much broader and more generalized speciality, like international relations or political science or government. So SCAR is a very unique school and a very unique field. I mean, you could count on one hand how many programs there are that are specifically looking at conflict analysis and resolution. So I came here because of the uniqueness of the program, because at AU we always hear about SCAR, we always hear about the professors here, we always hear about its reputation, we hear about the good work that they're doing, and so the two programs are very much connected. So I guess part of it was the reputation of the program in the school, and then part of it was because this is what I was specifically interested in. I wasn't interested in a more generalized degree. And some people have cautioned, the more specific your PhD is in, the harder it is to get a job. Like if you have a PhD in political science, you might have an easier job because it's a broader umbrella. But I have faith that having a specific focus is a great asset rather than a hindrance. But that's part of what brought me here.
Okay, thank you, and I wish you good luck with your studies.